Okay, so we are going to move into using the Pythagorean theorem to actually solve real world problems. And I know you may think that the Pythagorean theorem is just used to solve for triangles, and that is not true. It can actually be used to help when problem solving in the real world. So just unless otherwise stated, let's always round our answers to the, sorry, did not mean to write there. Let's round our answers to the hundredths place, and the hundredths place is 0.00 here. So whatever that number is in the thousandths place tells us to stay the same or go up. So we're always rounding to the hundredths place. Okay, so we have a flat screen TV in the shape of a rectangle. That's important, so I'm going to underline that. A width of 36 inches and a height of 46 inches. We are asked to find the diagonal. So for most Pythagorean theorem word problems, a picture helps. So I'm going to go ahead and draw my TV. And what I know is that the width is 36 and the height is 20. So I'm going to go ahead and label those parts. What I also know is that each angle of a rectangle is 90 degrees. Okay, so far so good. And then if you connect, because we want to find the diagonal, so the diagonal would be from corner to corner, you can then see, I'm going to shade in this part, that we now have a right triangle. And then the right angle would be here in this corner. Okay, so because of that, here's the right angle. These two sides are my legs, and the diagonal becomes our hypotenuse. So we can use a squared plus b squared equals c squared to determine the rest, or to determine that length of that diagonal. Again, it doesn't matter the order in which we write our a and b and c, or a and b, excuse me, our legs. But we do know that c has to go on the right-hand side because that's our hypotenuse. That's the one we're trying to find. So in our calculator, let's do 3 to the second power. And I've got 1296 plus 20 squared. It is 400, which is then equal to c squared. Now, this next step of the equation tells us exactly what to do. We are going to add these two numbers. And when I do, I end up with 1,696 c squared. I still don't know c, so to find c, I have to take the inverse of squaring c, which is the square root. And if I square root one side, I have to square root the other side. And using the second button, you can find the square root button, which is above the x squared. 1696 to end up with c is equal to 41.182. I want to stop here at this 8. This 2 makes the 8 stays the same, so our solution would be 41.82 inches. All right, so just to review, this is a quick review. This is an irrational number because this had this long decimal. And next week we're going to learn how to figure out these answers. Okay, so number 2, a 20-foot piece of wire is attached from the top of the flagpole to a stake in the ground, and that stake is 8 feet from the base of the pole. So I'm going to draw a quick picture. It doesn't have to be perfect. There's my flagpole. There's my flag. Here's the stake in the ground, and I'm not talking about like a steak like you eat. I'm talking about, yeah, stake. So I do know that what it said is the stake is 8 feet from the base of the pole, so that's 8. And then this 20-foot piece of wire is attached from the top of the pole all the way down to the stake. So that's 20 feet. Then what we're looking for now is this height of that pole. So we could call that X. And we can assume that because this is a vertical line and this is a horizontal line, that this would be our right angle, and that now 20 is C, and we're looking for one of the legs because we know our hypotenuse. So if I were you, I would label these with either legs or a hypotenuse and A, B, and C. Okay, so now we can use the Pythagorean theorem to solve this problem. And I don't know A, so I can leave that A squared. We know B. B is a side length, and that's 8 squared. And I do know C is my hypotenuse because that is diagonal from the right angle, or above, however some people like to say that. And that's 20. So I'm going to go ahead and substitute that in, 20 squared. So A squared plus 64 plus 200 squared is 400. Oops, I don't need my squared anymore. Sorry. So now what we're going to do is we have got to solve for A. So I am going to subtract 64 first. Subtract 64, and 400 minus 64 is 336. So I'm going to move all of this up here. A squared is now equal to 336. So I know that some number times itself is is 36. So to find that number, I have to take the square root of A squared, which leaves me with A, and then I have to take the square root of 336. And I don't think that's a perfect square, so I know my answer is going to be irrational. This is an irrational number, and 33.0, and that 0 makes that stay 33. Okay, so this next problem, number 3, I want you to try to draw it first. So in just a second, what I want you to do is press pause and then draw the picture, and then press play and see if your picture matches mine. So here we have a 14-foot ladder is leaning against a wall. So here's my wall, and it doesn't matter if you drew your wall over here. And here's my ladder. Beep, beep, beep. And I know that, okay, and that ladder is 14 feet, so I'm going to put that here. And then it says the base of the ladder, and base just means bottom. The bottom of the ladder is 6 feet from the wall. So that's going to be here. And we're assuming because the ladder comes straight down and it meets a horizontal line that would be my right angle. And it says how high up is of the wall. So that's what we're looking for. And that would be a leg. So here we have our hypotenuse, we have one of our legs, and we're missing our other leg. So I'm going to use the Pythagorean theorem because this is a right triangle. And then because it's a right triangle, I am going to use A squared plus B squared equals C squared. I'm looking for one of my legs, so that's going to stay A. B is 6 squared. C squared is 14 squared. And now all I do is find these answers, or these numbers. I do exactly like the equation tells me to. 6 squared is 36. 14 squared is 196. Now I'm solving for A squared, so I'm going to solve it like a regular equation. I'm going to subtract 36. Subtract 36, and 196 minus 36 is equal to 160. And I know that's not a perfect square, so it's going to be irrational. But to get rid of this squared, I take the square root. So what's the square root of A squared? A. And what's the square root of 160? Well, second x squared. Enter gives me 12. 0.649, and that 9 is going to make that 4 go up, round up to um, a 5. I can't write today. So it's 12.65. All right. This is the last one that I'm going to go over. Actually, I lied. I'm going to go over one more after this. Okay, so Josh and Ben spotted a bear in the woods while riding their bikes. Woohoo! Josh rode 3 miles north and Ben rode 2 miles east. How far apart are the two boys? Well, let's think about where they started. So they're going to start here. Here's our bear. It's a beautiful bear. Ah! Josh and Ben are here at the bear. They see the bear. Josh goes, oh no! And he rides his bike 3 miles north because north is up. So here's Josh. He ends up here. He's like, whoosh, 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 I'm at safety. Ah, ah, ah. And then Ben goes, ah, it's a bear. And he rides 2 miles east. And here's Ben. And he's like, oh goodness, yay. Oh no, but where's Josh? So this is how far apart they are, because you wouldn't want to go back down and then back right, because that would get you back to the bear. And because north and east are perpendicular, excuse me, are vertical and horizontal lines, here's your right angle. And this distance between Josh and Ben is going to be C. Okay, so I'm going to help. I started you with the picture, and now I want you to see if you can solve it. Do me a favor and turn over to the back, and let's look at 6. 6 is a bit of a difficult problem because we've got an isosceles triangle, has legs that measure 10 feet, and the height is 7 feet, and we want to find the length of its base. Don't draw this picture right now, but most people try to draw this, which to make it a right triangle, and then they said 10 and 10, but that's not what it said because we want to find the height, and that would be height. So this is not your drawing. An isosceles triangle is a triangle that has 2 equal sides. So here are those 2 equal sides. These are both 10. And we're looking for the base of that triangle, which is there. So, no, yeah, we're looking for the base given the height. And height is the distance. Just think about how tall you are, measuring from your very height, very tip top, all the way to the base. So here is your height, which is a vertical line. There's where your right angle occurs. And this thing is 7 feet tall. So now you're looking for this triangle here. If I pull it out separately, is 10 and 7 in your right angle. So you're missing a leg. And I'm going to give you a hint that's only going to give you this length, but you're asked to find the length of the base of this full triangle. So you're going to have to figure that out. Okay, when you're finished with all of these problems, you're just going to stop and hang on tight to your paper.